Hi everybody, I'm just letting everybody in. Okay, I'll just give it about a minute and a bit. More people coming, here we go. Okay, just so you're all aware, it does mute you all and turns off your cameras when you come in because we've set it up as a webinar on here. In the top bar of Teams, however, you should see a little button for Q&A. So if you want to click on that, you can kind of pinboard questions in there as we're going through, and I'll be able to answer them in the Q&A part towards the end. I'll aim to keep kind of on time. I think last webinar that we did, I think was about 35 minutes of me presenting and talking about the subject, and then we had like an open Q&A for everybody. So we'll try and answer as many questions as we can. If there is anything that kind of requires a little bit more delve in, then people can set up either a one-to-one, or if it's something that everybody wants to know, I can put something out on an email with some answers, or do a little video, Loom video for you with some answers too. Okay, it is 2 minutes past. I'll just give it one more minute. There's quite a lot of people here now. I'm guessing people just logging on to their Teams. Go. Give it one more minute. There we go. Okay, it's 13:03, so I'll make a start, and I'll keep adding people as they come in. And the first bit's a bit of an introduction to me anyway, so hopefully it's not kind of the content that they've come for. Obviously, I'd love to think that everybody's just here to find out about me, but okay. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. It's on presentation mode, but if there is any problems throughout, you can use that Q&A, or you can do like the little hand signals, I think, as well, if anybody kind of needs anything, or you can use the chat function too, and I'll be able to see that. It will come up as a notification to me. Okay, so today's webinar is all around enhancing client relationships and asking for referrals within recruitment businesses. So hopefully I'll be able to instill some of the knowledge, give you some sort of examples of things. I try to make sure that these webinars are quite practical in terms of like ideas and skills that you could be implementing that will make a difference to your business. So hopefully you get some good takeaways. I have got a link which I'll be sharing on the Q&A at the end, which is just to a survey and feedback. I'll also send it out on email, but it would be really good to get people's feedback around what kind of things you'd like to see. We've got a few dates booked in over the next sort of month, but if there's any particular topics, then we can always kind of adapt the topics around things that people would really find useful. Okay. So shameless plug, which obviously I have to do at the beginning. So just a bit about me, so you know who I am. I've been working in marketing for over 20 years now, particularly in the B2B sector. I started working purely in recruitment about 8 years ago now. So I work for Your Marketing Needs, and we offer a kind of virtual or fractional marketing director service where we help people plan and strategize their marketing, and then we also do some parts delivery as well. So if there are things that come out of today that you'd like to kind of find out more about, then please, by all means, use the links in the emails, and you can book a one-to-one call direct in my calendar. Okay, so first of all, I thought it was important to kind of set the scene rather than just go straight into talk about referrals, around why it is important to build relationships with your customers in recruitment. And I think this is something that I've certainly seen over the last 5 years, that people have kind of got a lot more on board with wanting to build long-term relationships with clients. I think there's always been that kind of retain factor, but especially in COVID, that kind of propelled people's momentum in kind of wanting to do this a little bit, in that they wanted to kind of ensure that they were receiving, being paid for the value of service that they deliver to their clients. And so, you know, a lot more has been invested into client relationships and building them, working with existing clients, because that's obviously going to be your lowest hanging fruit to enhance those relationships. Okay, so I always like to start off with some stats. So increasing customer retention rates by just 5% can lead to increased profits between 25 and 95%. Acquiring a new client can cost up to 5 times more than retaining an existing client. So these just really kind of back up what we're talking about as we move forward. More of the science, so things like companies with strong client relationships report 25% increase in sales, 84% of consumers, so they're more likely to do business with the company that they're loyal to. So it comes back to that building of that relationship before you can ask for the referral. 92% of people trust a referral from someone they know, either a friend or a family. And loyal customers are worth 10 times more than a new customer. They're more likely to spend upwards of 67% more than a new customer if they're an existing or loyal customer. A copy of all these slides will be sent round after, and if people want links to the stats, I'm happy to share those too. Okay, so some common kind of breakdowns or misconceptions about referrals that I hear quite often. And people seem to be under the impression that you'll get referrals without being asked, or people will refer you on. This does happen, however, it's leaving everything down to chance and putting it into their court to kind of refer you on. Another common misconception is that people think it's rude to ask for referrals, and that's definitely not the case. And that, you know, it's something that people quite like. People like to talk about their experiences. People like to kind of share good news. So it's definitely not rude. People don't care about the what's in it for them. They really do. So we'll come on to that a little bit later. But when you start to think about like what you're going to offer in terms of that referral, you need to think about the what's in it for them. Nobody does something without a reason behind it. And the fourth one is around, like, people seem to think that it has to be a really complicated system with lots of terms and conditions and kind of hidden things away. And if you refer me and then in 6 months' time, if that person's still in the placement, and, you know, try to put all of these terms around it. And one of the kind of misconceptions around that is obviously that the more complicated you make something, the worse it will be. Then, you know, the simpler you can make it, the better. It may mean that sometimes you lose out, i.e. you have to pay out for a referral when it, you know, that person doesn't stay in the job for 12 months or something like that. But ultimately, if you add that into the cost of acquisition of one client, it's always going to be less than if you were to kind of go out and find that person from scratch. So it's just something to bear in mind as we move forward. Okay, so in terms of engaging with clients, and again, it's going back to that thing of looking at that client relationship, and when is the right time to engage with a client. So a nice stat around that is that 50% of clients who are regularly engaged with are more likely to return and reuse your services. So I kind of wanted to take one step further on from that and think about like the candidate touch points that we typically see within a recruiter. So you've kind of end up in this sort of continual loop. So, the person might first approach us when they're looking for a role. Then they've kind of got that consideration stage where they might be looking at roles that are available with you. They then might go on to an interview process. And at that point, they're probably feeling quite sort of engaged with you, because ultimately you're going to get something from that candidate. So they'll be feeling very engaged, very loved. And then there'll be the feedback stage, which we all know can sometimes kind of dip in that terms of that relationship, because perhaps the client's taken a long time to feedback, so it's leaving your candidate in the kind of no man's land, and then eventually hopefully that will turn into a placement. And then for some people, hopefully, people have got this set up, but another touch point would be, say, your survey post-placement, and then the wheel will come back round. So when that candidate then starts to think about, am I in the right role? Should I be looking to upgrade? Should I be looking to move businesses? Have I taken kind of the wrong step in my career? What's my next steps? That's where you're more likely to engage with them a second time round, and then it begins that loop again. So if we start to think about like when people are loyal to you, so we look at this, so you can see here, in that beginning stage, they're not really aware of who you are, but then they start to engage with you. And that might be, you're sending them through roles, you're speaking to them on the phone. And so their loyalty at that point starts to kind of rise. And then they might drop off a little bit because, the roles might go quiet, the CVs might not be of interest to the customer. And so what you tend to find is that some candidates will then start to dip off because they don't have a role that you can put them forward to, or they're not in that kind of engagement. Or it could be feedback stages, it could be kind of interview stages, but hopefully that will start to build up. So once that engagement starts to rebuild with them and you're placing them, for instance, that's when the loyalty starts to kind of go upwards again to probably its peak. If you place somebody, that's probably at that point the most loved they will feel by you. They'll be feeling really grateful to you. And then what tends to happen is then you might have like a few bits that follow up. So you might have a survey, or you might have, a check-in phone call within that 3-month probation period. But after that, we tend to find that people tend to dip. And this is the point where you can start to see that their engagement levels have dropped, their loyalty starts to drop right down. Until the point where they start to then reconsider what their options are in terms of career. So this is something that you really need to bear in mind, and how you can increase the engagement in those in between times. So in where we've got these troughs here, what could we be doing to help engage those customers? Because remember, 50% of people who are more engaged are more likely to buy from you again. So just some really practical ideas of things that you could be doing from candidate perspectives. Things like satisfaction surveys, if you're not already doing, is an easy win. It helps flag up any issues so that you're dealing with it. If you think about a complaint process, people remember how it's dealt with rather than what the issue was. So think about that. It's better that they're coming to you and saying about their dissatisfaction than putting it out on social media or kind of voicing their concerns in the business that they're in. Things like industry polls are a really good one. Salary surveys, we know they're the kind of old hat stuff, but they still work. Any kind of free content that's relevant to them. So it could be, competitions, newsletters. Think of ways that you can engage with them on a meaningful basis that isn't just around the sell. This will help ensure that those peaks and troughs aren't so great in between. Okay, so if we look again at this time at the client touch points, so they might engage with you when they're looking for talent, and that could be you engaging with them or vice versa. Then they have that consideration, they've got the interviews, the feedback, the placements, hopefully some kind of satisfaction surveys or follow-ups off the back of that. And they might have follow-up from their account managers. You might then be pushing them into land and expand activity. And so all of these points, again, are great touch points, but the idea is that you want to make it a continuous loop. So, as soon as they start to consider what's their budget, are they looking to recruit over the next sort of 6 months, they need to be having, or you want to get them into the cycle of having those conversations with you. So again, their loyalty graph will be really similar to the candidates, that you'll see those peaks and troughs of loyalty, which will dip when we back off in terms of engagement to their most loyal when you've found them that person and they've placed them. And this is kind of typical for most recruitment cycles, that you'll find these kind of peaks and troughs. So again, it's looking at like, what can we do to ensure that we remain some kind of level of consistency, so we don't ever drop off. How can we get them to be more loyal? What can we do? Well, engagement is one way to do that, definitely. So again, I've just tried to think of some really practical examples of things that you could be doing in your business that would be quick wins for client engagement. So again, it's things like those satisfaction surveys, industry polls, salary surveys and free content, competitions. You can run them for clients as well. It doesn't have to just be around candidates. Newsletters, so even sending out if people are contracting, like the hot contractors, roles that you've got, or like industry insights, webinars, interviews, podcasts, offer them planning meetings. So when they start to kind of think about those next steps and their next recruitment, that you're ahead of the game. So if you can offer to run a planning session for them to help ensure that their resource planning is in place for the next 6-12 months, then you're going to get insight into where they're kind of shifting, and it will gain you some of that loyalty again, and it's another interaction point. Okay, so in terms of referrals, hopefully I feel like I'm building a bit of a story here, but in terms of referrals, we quite have to get asked, so when should I ask for referrals? And the answer to that is all the time. However, there are key points where you're more likely to get that referral in. So if we look at our loyalty graph for candidates, look at where are they feeling most loved? Well, when they're placed, definitely. If we're not asking for a referral at that point, we're massively missing a trick. When we start to engage with them, so we're sending them out roles, we're getting them, engaged, we're sending their CVs in, when we're really speaking to them on a regular basis, again, that's a real peak time when we're more likely to get a referral in. And it's the same on the client side. It's again looking at that customer journey and thinking about where are the times within that period where they feel most loved, because that's where you're more likely to get the referral, because they'll be feeling joyous about the delivery that you've done for them. They'll be feeling confident in your abilities. And so this is the kind of key factoring point where you want to be hitting them for these referrals. Okay, ask when they feel more loved. Okay, so going on from that, we need to start to think about, but how? So we know now that we need to keep our clients and candidates engaged on a more regular basis to create that kind of relationship, create that loyalty. We then know the key times when they're going to be most loyal. Okay, so now we can start to think about, right, what can I do to ask them for a referral? How can I do it? And there's lots of different ways to do this. So again, I've just tried to think of like practical examples. One of the ones that I think people forget about quite often is face-to-face in meetings. I met he was a lawyer, specialist in recruitment lawyer, at an event I went to about 6 months ago, and we were talking about referrals around the table. And he said he always, when he does his face-to-face meetings, while he's sitting in the meeting, he asks them for a referral. And 9 times out of 10, he walks out of that meeting with a referral in his hand. Now it's down to him to then follow up but he's got that introduction and he can talk about that person referred him, or he'll ask them to do a LinkedIn while he's there and in LinkedIn introduction. So I think it's not to be overlooked. Face to face, people are getting back into face to face meetings. People like seeing people face to face. So this is a prime opportunity to kind of make sure that you're putting people in that position where they can quite freely give you that referral over the phone. So is it part of your kind of sales scripts to ask for referrals? How often do we ring someone up after we've placed them just to ask for a referral? How often are we kind of putting that into our day-to-day referral kind of scripts? Things like online pop-ups on your website, in your email footers. Like, have you got a link through there to your referral scheme or a way that they can access it? Customer satisfaction surveys. If somebody's filled in a great satisfaction survey, have you got that built into that, a referral process? So is it easy for them to then give you a referral? It could be SMS marketing. I've been doing a lot of testing around this lately, and how you can utilize that. What kind of response rates better via SMS, and what scenarios does SMS work? Your customers and how they work, and that's something I talked about in the last webinar, was around building these customer avatars. So understanding what makes your customers tick, what kind of things would they respond to? Are they more a face-to-face? Are they a text message? Do they sit on LinkedIn all the time? Where are they sat? So things like social media ads and Google ads, you can run these specifically to a database. So if you have a customer database, you could put that into Facebook, say, and you could run an ad that was specifically to your customer database, so it would only show on them. You could do the same in LinkedIn. And it could be, Katie, we know you love working with your marketing needs. How about you refer us? Click here to enter your referral and get £200 or whatever it is. So there's other ways of kind of getting in front of your customers away from email, away from kind of the standard LinkedIn messages, other ways to just kind of put it in front of them and ask it in a more relaxed environment, such as a social platform. It could be a direct mail campaign, or a direct email campaign. How often do we promote people that have previously referred us, that we've given them this reward? Do we put pictures of it on socials? Do we kind of promote that? Do we use it as a case study? Like, that's a really nice way to kind of get social peer approval. So if you're showcasing somebody that's already done it and look what they've got, it's a really good way to attract even more. And social media posts for customers or candidates to share. So could you create a little post that you sent out to people to say, if you share this, we'll enter you into a draw, or at the time, I've been placed by XXX, speak to me for a referral code and we'll both get £100, or whatever it is. There are really good ways to ask for referrals that don't have to be rude or intimidating, or kind of, you shouldn't feel kind of any worry about asking, because especially if you've planned your journey right, that the times when you're asking most aggressively are the times when they're feeling the most pleased with your service. Okay, so then we start to think about, like, what should I offer in terms of kind of a reward for referral? And I know I've just kind of touched on this, but the key thing here is really knowing your customers. And if people haven't already built a customer avatar, I think one of the planned webinars, I think not the next one, I think the next one is on how to build social content using AI. But the one after that is around building customer avatars. So obviously you can hold on for that and build them. But this is really key, because this is the kind of like profile, if you like, that you build that helps you understand who your customers are, what are their objections, what are their pain points, what kind of media do they consume, how do they like to be spoken to, how well do they react to stuff that you send, are they office based, are they remote, all of these things you build in the avatar, and that will help you determine what you can offer as a reward. A lot of say like financial services or pharmaceutical or anything public sector, there's really strict rules, for instance, around like what can be offered in terms of rewards, what they can take. So it is, again, comes down to knowing your customers as to determining what it is that you can offer them in terms of a reward. But I thought it'd be good to, again, give some practical examples of things that I've seen. So things like iPad or tech giveaways are always appealing. It could be something that they could use either at work or at home. Things like vouchers are good. They're also up to certain values, write-offable against your tax. Cash, everybody loves a bit of cash. But you could do that in different forms. So like charity donations, for instance. It could be access to an exclusive event. So, do you have could you get tickets for, I don't know, Wimbledon or something, and then everybody that's referred over this year gets to enter into the draw to take one of them VIP tickets, or something of high value worth that people would be interested in doing, so an experience. And it is all around that. It's about finding things that are deemed as high value, but however don't cost you that high value. So that's why I always say to people, like, avoid anything like money off. So one of the problems is when you give people money off your services, it devalues what you do, and we need to avoid that, because our job is about creating understanding of the value that you're delivering as recruiters. So I'd always say avoid anything that kind of gives money off of what you do, because you'll never be able to creep that price back up. So it's about thinking around, is there an add-on service that they could get for free that perhaps doesn't cost you a huge amount, but will be seen as high value to them. So if you know that you work in a market where you can't offer them kind of tech gifts and things, it has to be business related, or, is there like a free consultation that you could do that was worth X, and sell that in as the benefit that they would get in kind from that. Okay. And the next bit is I'm going to talk about like how to administer. I have also got like a case study in here a little bit further on, so I think that will help kind of bring some of this to light. Okay, so when we start to think about like how to administer the recruitment referral process, the key thing with this is keeping it as simple as possible. There are lots of services that you can sign up to that will kind of administer all of this lovely stuff in the background for you. However, if you're just beginning your referrals journey, I wouldn't recommend going out and buying an expensive bit of tech, when actually, when you start to think about how many are likely to be coming through this process, it probably wouldn't offer a return on investment. So I'd always say start with that, fake it before you make it. So it could be as simple as keeping like a Google spreadsheet, or having some kind of database where you can literally see like who the referral's from, who the referral is, and then the outcome. So that you can start to track it. You can use things like even free services like MailerLite. You can build a landing page on there with a form, the simplest way for collecting data. And you can use that internally. So if you've got that landing page form, you can share that link internally. So when they're on the phone, they can literally fill it out then. You could then set up just a thank you automation email off the back of that. So starting to bring in some simple automations into that process. It could be as simple as printed forms that people have on their desk. So they have a pad of referrals. So when they're on the phone, they can literally jot down that person's details. Your process could be asking that person to do a referral introduction via LinkedIn. So it's about sitting down and mapping out like what you want your referral process to look like, and then trying to keep it as simple as possible. Hiding lots of things away in the terms and conditions. Again, it comes back to that weighing up of thinking, if we write it so in detail that, you know, there's all these clauses and everything else, ultimately you may end up doing more damage, because if somebody's done a referral and then, you know, if it isn't something really simple like when they get placed, if you've got 10 other things written into it to say, you know, but only if they're placed on a Wednesday, and you know they have to stay in the job for the next 10 years and then you'll get your payment, and da 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 da. The problem that you face is that that person who's giving you a referral could come away feeling a little bit sour about it, that either they've got to wait for 6 months before they get that payout, or you know that there's so many, they feel almost like they're being sort of cheated into giving that. Whereas if you can really simplify the process and, you know, understand that, you know, there may be certain hits that you take, but that again can come into the balance when you think about what it is you're going to give away for in exchange for that referral. And just my avoid on that, which I've just already touched on, but buying into tech solutions until you've tested its works. Anything in marketing is all about testing. So when you go into this, if you start to kind of map out your process, it very likely will change within 3 months. You know, nobody is going to come up with a perfect solution for their clients. You know, you'll build it probably based on what other people have done, or like suggestions from marketers like myself, but ultimately it will still require testing within your markets to see how people respond, where people respond from. You know, is it your email footers that are getting picked up? Is it your pop-up on the website? Is it asking people on the phone? It's kind of mapping out and testing all of the different ways, seeing what works, and then bringing that forward. So if you start to identify an area that works, that's when you can start to think, okay, how can we automate this? What could we do to kind of make it as even simpler internally for us? Who owns this process? Who's responsible for doing these follow-ups? Who's responsible for this part of the process? Making sure that everybody understands where their responsibility lies. Okay, so in terms of things that you actually need, I've tried to sort of be as practical as possible. So we need a way to collect the referral info. So this would be a database of some kind, so with an opportunity to cross-reference back against the customer or the candidate, i.e. the referrer and the referee. So you need to be able to cross-reference between them so that you can track, you know, when people are paid or when they should be paid, if you've got kind of conditions written in. But also you'll start to build a profile of who your best referrers are. And people will refer more than once if it's an easy process and they feel that they're getting benefit for them and the other person. That goes back to that what's in it for me. So you can start to leverage that. You can start to see who it is that's referring on a regular basis. And then you can start to think about, well, what else could we be offering them? How could we enhance their referral kind of process? And what extra are we giving them? And we definitely need agreed internal processes and an owner of these processes. So everybody needs to be really clear. There can't be a point where it falls down. If you set this up and, you know, you've got an administrator who's responsible for collecting the emails and then distributing them, if that person's on holiday, who's picking that up? Because you can't let any point of this, you have to view this the same as you would with any other candidate or client engagement, that it should be, you know, if you've promised something, you deliver it. So if there should be an email follow-up that goes out, you need to either automate it or have cover or have plans and processes in place to ensure that this happens no matter what. And it needs to be an easy way for people to self-administer as needed, and all the team's access. So again, that comes back to that idea of like a simple landing page. If you had one landing page, it could be used externally. It could be used internally just as easy. So there's an easy access point for people to enter their details in some kind of form. And you need to be building a database in the background of all of the data that you're collecting within these forms, which will help you identify characteristics, timings. So you can start to look at, because, you know, let's not forget, you're going to set this up and you might only get one in the first month, for instance. So you can really start to think about, like, right, where was that person in the process? Was it after did they do it off the back of a survey? Did they do it off, you know, a different point where they were feeling really engaged with us? and start to think about how can I then enhance that to kind of gather more. And you need to have agreed terms and conditions that aren't overly complicated. And you need to have a promotion plan to test this. So think about all of your touch points, where you're going to ask for referrals and what the different mechanisms would be for doing that. And then it needs to be a really clear reward scheme for both candidates and clients, but also think about internally. So if you're tasking people when they're on the phones, for instance, to ask for those referrals, are you incentivizing it internally too? And then I've just said test to see what works. That's the really key thing. Okay, I'll try and rattle through this because I know it's 13:35. And so I just thought it'd be good to do a bit of a case study on a company who have set up and run a really successful reward scheme. Pick Dropbox. So I'm sure all of you are aware of who Dropbox are. They're B2B predominantly. They initially started out, so this is a good example of how things have adapted. They initially started out offering, an extra amount of storage. So again, they're not discounting the price, they're offering them something else of value that probably, an extra 500 megabytes for Dropbox probably costs them nothing. But for you as a customer, you see that as a real high value ticket. So, already you're thinking, yeah, okay, if I keep increasing, if I keep starting to put people on, it increases by 500 megabytes each time. I can really build up my space for storage. So as the time has gone on, this has kind of gone on further. So now they have it almost like if you refer so many people, you'll get this. If you refer this many people, and you have different levels within. So there's exclusive perks, there's different storage plans, there's premium features. So you'll get access to a premium feature. So what they're doing is actually upselling you without you realizing, because you think, oh yeah, this is really great. I've referred this person and I've now got access to this premium feature that allows me to do X, Y, and Z. In 2 months' time, when they say, actually, we're going to take that back now because you only got it for that month or that 2 months, you're going to start to think, well, hang on, I use that feature. So you're going to then upgrade your account to suit that. So I think this is a really good example of how they've leveraged a low value to them, but high value to the customer ticket to really encourage them referrals. In terms of how they collect them, they use social media forms. So they identified that most of their referrals came through from social media. So what they've done is they've actually embedded and built social media forms within the platforms that collect that referral data. So you'll see like ads, say for Dropbox, and it will have like the refer a friend. They run those ads to existing customers. So it would come up and say, Katie, if you refer a friend, you're at this stage and you'll get X, Y, and Z off, of extra storage or whatever it is, this premium feature. And they also have website pop-ups. So when you log into the website as a customer, it will come up. So on the accounts, I don't know if any of you've got Dropbox, when you open into your platform on the right-hand side, they've got a pop-up and there is a promotion on there that just talks about referrals. And when you get emails through from them with your bills, there's a link to the referral. I've talked about the promotion on the customer web area, and they've got social sharing buttons with a built-in code. So if you want to refer on when you're on your platform, you can literally forward it to your Facebook, and it will put in a self-generated code so that if somebody clicks through from that, their back office system will kind of capture that and put it in. And then they've actually built now a bespoke platform that sits behind all of their kind of CRMs and everything to capture their referrals, which obviously they didn't start out with. And again, it goes back to that fake it till you make it. If you break down the functionality of what they're doing, you can then replicate that within. It just will mean a bit more admin for you internally. Okay. On the flip side of that, though, their rewards they've adapted as they've moved forward to meet their customers' needs, and the rewards that they've then turned into an upselling mechanism too. They've kept it really, really simple. So they worked out, for instance, that social media was a really good platform for them to get referrals. So running those ads specifically to the people making them embedded forms so people don't even leave the platforms has kept it all really simple. There's no hidden terms and conditions. It literally is give us that person's details. When they sign up for an account, you'll get this extra storage space. They've made it multi-referral. So rather than just looking short term at like getting one referral from each customer, they've thought about how they can then increase that. So what else could they do? And then once you start to refer once, you get put into like this premium referral scheme. So they're really enhancing that kind of experience for those people. And they've reduced their acquisition costs of new customers massively by utilising their existing customers network, but also using that upsell mechanism that they do. So they've increased their revenue twofolds. Okay, so in terms of key takeouts for today, and my words of wisdom is definitely around building those customer avatars. This is really key. And you'll hear this a lot on our webinar series that we talk about, is utilizing those avatars, because that will be the key behind understanding like how to speak to your customers, the sorts of content they want to see, how they like to be engaged. You then need to think about mapping your communications funnels. So which points in the business have kind of dipped, where the loyalty dips? What are we doing to speak to our customers then, or candidates then? How are we keeping them engaged? Is there easy ways that we could kind of increase that communication using funnels, using automations? Is there things that we could be doing that would just kind of enhance that relationship as we move through that cycle or the wheel of kind of recruitment? And then you can start to think about planning your ideal process for those referrals, but keep it as simple as possible and think about how you can reward. Again, look at your customers, understand what will appeal to them, what can you offer them that isn't going to kind of put them in an awkward situation, if they're public sector or whatever. And then my last big thing is put this into action. Every day that you're not doing this or not doing something about this, the chances are that one of your competitors are, and it's an opportunity that you're missing. If you've placed 10 people in the last month and you haven't asked them 10 people for referrals, how much business could that have equated to? So everything we talk about, and I try to be as practical as possible in these kind of webinars, but it is about taking action. So getting that thing done that's going to make a difference to your kind of recruitment business and your bottom line. Excuse me. Okay, so that brings us to the end. I'll open the Q&A in a minute. So if people have got questions, if they want to type them into that Q&A section. Excuse me. But just to kind of, as we always do, just a shameless plug. So just to kind of push what we do. So we work with recruiters on helping you plan your marketing. So we run workshops so we could help you plan for like that year ahead. We offer a mentoring scheme as well. So if you've got an internal marketing team, or you are the internal marketing team, we can work with you to plan and then keep you accountable, lead you in the right direction in terms of what we deliver. And then we have like a more strategic level, which is our fractional marketing director, tends to be working at more kind of senior level or board level. So this would be around like helping you reach your business goals and objectives, utilizing marketing and how it all fits together and aligns with your sales. Okay, and as I said, I'll send all this round to everybody, but we do offer a free consultation to everybody. So you can book that either by the Teams link, which you'll get at the end of the call, or emailing me directly or direct messaging me directly, and we can sort that out. Hopefully that wasn't too painful, the shameless plug. Not part 4, I think it's about part 7 to Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? There's nothing in the Q&A thing yet. Okay. Just check the chat in case. Okay, right. There's no questions there, so I must have answered everything for you all. That's great. No problem, David. If anybody does have any questions that they want to take offline, like I said, feel free to contact me directly, and we can set up either a one-to-one, or I'm happy to just kind of field questions as they come in. I will send you guys after this meeting, like I said, the feedback form. It'd be really great if people could give feedback just to kind of fill us in on things that you'd like to see over the next few webinars, and we'll go from there. Thanks everybody for attending today.